Wow, I was salty. I was really salty reading this book. Hey guys, it's Dasha. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be doing the annotating book tag. I love seeing how other people annotate, so this tag is absolutely fascinating to me. I saw Starla from Starla Reads do it recently, and I also saw my friend Nat from Nerdy Nat Reads do it, so I'll link both of their videos down below. I got the questions from their channels, and I'm just like super excited because I love talking about writing in books because I love how it terrifies some people, but the people that do it, they know how great it is. So anyways, let's get right on into it. So the first question is, do you mark your annotations with page flags? And most of the time, but not always. So I have my copy of Our Prison's Obsolete by Angela Davis here, and as you can see, there are quite a few tabs in here. I read this for school, but I also wanted to read it in general. It was a really good excuse to read something I really wanted to read. And so I underlined a lot of things in here, and I had different colored tabs for things for school that I was using in an essay. And then I just kept the tabs of the things that like really, really interested me and that I wanted to keep more casually, like not for a paper. So if you see, I have things underlined and marked down, but they're not tabbed. So only the things that I thought were extremely important, extremely relevant, or things that I wanted to refer to at some point, I did mark with a tab, but not everything. And I think it's just because sometimes things are like interesting, or underlining in nonfiction especially helps me remember things, but it's not like so incredible and noteworthy that I need to tab it, if that makes sense. Question number 2 is, do you match the flag colors to the cover of the book, or do you have a system? I just match. I don't have a system at all. I used to not match it at all, but then I thought that that was kind of ugly. So I just kind of match for the most part. So for this one, for example, I picked red and purple because I thought they went good together. The only time I have like a system is I just use a different color if it's something I want to remember or look up. So in this case, I don't know if you can see, but there is one yellow flag because this was something I thought I wanted to remember for later because I feel like it's gonna come up. But things I just loved and scenes I loved, just random colors, I just alternate the colors. I think it just looks a little neater when it kind of matches the cover. Obviously with a cover like this, it can't really match, but I just pick 2 colors and kind of alternate. I think that's the easiest and neatest way to go about it. Same thing with here. Obviously it's not quite the same colors, but I wanted to at least coordinate them. So it's like just 2 colors, and if something really stands out, it will be in a 3rd color. So I guess that's kind of a system. The only exception to the matching rule is books I don't like. So I'm gonna talk about the difference between the tabs later on, if that makes sense. But when I use the paper tabs for books that I don't really like, these have a system. So pink is anything that relates to characters. So here I am complaining about Darrow. As will happen a lot. There's a lot of pink, as you can see. Yellow relates to the writing in the book. So here I'm complaining about how time passes in the book. Blue is everything else. It's just like comments. I have like, I am confused, this is odd. I also use green when there are tropes. So when I read a bit more YA, there was a lot of tropes that kept popping up, so I used green for that. And then I think that's it. And then it was orange too. Okay, orange was for tropes. Oh, green was for cringe. Okay, pink is for characters, orange is for tropes, yellow is for writing, green is for cringe, and blue is like any other thoughts, general things that don't fit in those categories. That's the only time I have a system, because if I'm doing a review, it's a lot easier to come back to specific moments and pinpoint like, yeah, I really clearly had an issue with characters in this book, as well as a few writing and general issues, if that makes sense. The 3rd question is, what is the first book you ever annotated? So I don't know exactly which one it is, but I annotated these in high school. I have Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This one I actually like wrote in. God, I didn't even use a ruler back in the day. It's like embarrassing. Oh, this one was just in pencil. Okay, that's not that bad then. I could probably erase that. And this one wasn't much. It was just kind of just like underlining things I liked or putting little brackets around things. And then I also annotated, I was obsessed with this book. I still really love it. Honestly, this was like recently tabbed, but I annotated it in high school and wrote down things I really liked. And I actually started doing a thing because the first time I annotated, I used pencil in a lot of books just in case I wanted to get rid of them someday, or if I wasn't sure I was gonna like the book. So when I went back and annotated it as an adult, I used a different color so you can see the difference in the annotations. This is another one of the first ones for sure. And the other one is Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. I don't know what it is about this book. I think it's the way it romanticizes New York City that has me obsessed, because I think as a teenager on Tumblr, we were all obsessed with New York City. But this book, I went through and just wrote down a lot of little dumb notes. I really related to it because it was dealing with like a breakup and a few other things that were like relatable to a teenager. So I literally probably read it twice because there's two different colors of annotation here. Oh, the lighting's changing, I'm so sorry. Yeah, these were definitely some of the first ones, and it's crazy to see how different it was, like how much I didn't care. I didn't use like a little ruler or anything to make it neater. I didn't put any flags or anything because I was bringing these books to school and I didn't want the flags to get all like messed up and stuff. But these 3 books meant a lot to me in high school, so I felt the need to annotate them. Question 4 is, have you ever been against annotating books? Nope. I never thought about it, but once I saw that it was a thing people did, I was sold. I love the idea of like communicating with your books. So once I realized that you could do that, and I was like, well, it's my books, of course I can write in them, yeah, no problem. I really got into it. I never thought like, oh no, that's like really weird, I'm leaving my books pristine. Like for me, it was always a part of reading. Once I learned that this was a thing people did, I loved it. The next question is, did you ease into annotating your books or did you jump right in? And I think, as evidenced by my first annotated ones, I jumped right in. I used pencil, so maybe that would be considered easing in, because I was like, well, what if I don't like the book, or like, what if I'm gonna get rid of it, or what if I need to blend it to someone and like I don't want people seeing my cringy notes in it. But like, yeah, I was like underlining and like quoting stuff and writing stuff down. I never really had an issue with going like all in. I do use pencil if it's a book I'm not sure I'm gonna love, but especially like second, third books in series, I just go all in. Or if it's a reread, I go right in with pen because I'm sure I'm gonna love it. I only really reread books if I like them a lot, or if I'm going into like a series. So for the most part, I know I like those books, so I do annotate in pen right away. But for the most part, I start with pencil, I guess. So if you want to call that easing in, sure. Question number 6 is, do you keep an unannotated version of your annotated books? I absolutely do not. I thought at some point BookTube made me think that it was cool to have like multiple copies of the same book, but the more perspective I get, I think that's really just unnecessary and wasteful. I understand if it's a book you like absolutely love. I do have 2 copies of the Harry Potter books from when I was younger. It's just like I did have a collector's mentality for sure, and with books that important that got so beat up because I read them as a kid a lot. Of course I wanted like a kind of nicer copy, but I don't think there's any value for me personally in keeping a second copy of a book that I annotated to have like a nice copy. I don't have friends that read that would borrow my books, so to me it doesn't really matter. You know, I don't really have one copy to lend out so no one sees my secret notes. It doesn't matter to me, and I try not to keep second copies of books anyways. Question number 7 is, has anyone ever annotated a book for you? And like, no, but like I wish. That'd be so much fun. There's like annotated book swaps. I heard that was a thing. Like you buddy read a book and then you write your notes in it and like swap so you guys can see what the other person thought. That kind of stuff sounds so cool, but no, I've never had anyone actually just like annotate a book and give it to me, but I would love that. The next question is, do you mind used books with annotations already in them? I want to say no, but then I remember anytime I got a textbook and there was already someone's highlighter in it, it drove me absolutely insane. And maybe that's not a reasonable example because textbooks are supposed to be for learning, memorizing, that kind of thing. So like maybe you want to use your own method or like have your own highlights in it, fair enough. But looking at it, especially if someone didn't use a ruler or they highlighted really weird, I don't know, I got like unreasonably angry. So I don't know if I'd like it. I did buy a used book that had someone's ex libris stamp in it, which was pretty cool. And I thought that was a really cool thing to find, but like, I don't know if I'd like it if it had everyone's annotations. I think it depends on the book. I feel like if it was like a philosophy book or a classic, that could be really cool because you could see someone actually interacting with the book. But if I bought like a random fantasy book and I just had someone's comments like, oh my God, I love these too, like I'd be kind of pissed off personally. Question number 9 is, have you ever got like horrified stares or weird looks when annotating books? Honestly, no, because I tend to not annotate when I'm in public. So when I used to read like on the bus, obviously it'd be impossible to annotate because you're like bumping around. My boyfriend thought I was really weird for writing in my books, but that doesn't matter. He had to get over it real fast because I do it all the time around him. But no, nobody really thinks I'm like that weird. Then again, I don't read that much in public, so maybe I would get weird looks if I did it in public. Question number 10 is, what do you annotate your books with? So several things, usually a pen or pencil, like I said, depending on if it's the first time I'm reading a book or if I'm not sure I'm gonna like it. Pencil, if I already know I like the book, usually just a regular black. I have like the Muji pens. However, for certain books, I've read them more than once, so I thought a different color would be better. Honestly, normally I'm just too lazy to grab like a different color. I tried matching at some point the color of like the cover to the color of the pen. I use like those Staedtler fine liners, but that's honestly too much work. So I usually just keep this little Muji pencil case for annotating stuff. I used to bring it to campus too, that's why there's like a highlighter in it. And it usually had just a pen, pencil, and tab. So that's mainly what I use to annotate. It's just the easiest thing. Pencil and pen normally, and then just some Post-it sticky flags for the books that I like. For books that I don't like or have a lot of issues with, I use the paper Post-it tabs because I can write on them specifically what I don't like. They're a lot less expensive, so I can throw them away if I'm getting rid of the book eventually. Case in point is my copy of Red Rising by Pierce Brown. The first time I read this, I did not really like it. So there's a few paper tabs in here with my complaining. However, literally, bruh, what? LOL. Just me being completely fucking like, I fucking hate the way time passes in this book. Just like whining, a lot of whining. I use those for books I don't like because yeah, I can get rid of them if they get destroyed. I don't really care. It's most likely not a book I'm gonna keep, so I don't really care to put nice tabs in them. Next question is, have you ever regretted annotating a book? Yes, I had to throw out some copies of books that I annotated that were like too personal, that I couldn't really donate or anything. And I annotated in pen, which was really stupid, which is why I started annotating books first in pencil, and then like if I'm really sure I'm gonna keep them, really sure I'm gonna love them, I go in with pen, because I don't really want to do that again. I hate wasting like that. It drives me absolutely ballistic. And that's also why like I annotate in pencil for books I don't absolutely love, so that if I do get rid of them, I can just erase everything. It's like a hell of a process. If you saw my unhaul video recently, you'll see that like I got rid of books and some of them had like tabs and stuff. I had to go through and just erase all my notes and complaining, but I've never really regretted it since I changed to like my current, I guess, quote unquote, method of annotating. So I guess you could say like I haven't regretted it in a long time, but when I was young, absolutely. Like in high school, there's some books I annotated that I had to get rid of, and I was like, why did I do this? The next question is gonna probably be the longest one. It's, why do you annotate? And I have a million reasons depending on the genre that I'm reading. And so I wanted to quickly go over all of them. My favorite genre, fantasy. As you can see, I don't annotate nearly as much as some of the nonfiction that you saw. And that is because I find overall in fantasy, I can remember things pretty well. I know a lot of people have systems for remembering world building details and character names and appearances and things like that. I don't do that because if I forget, I forget. It'll come back up later. I usually just tend to annotate things that really like hit me in the emotions, things that are beautiful, really, really good writing moments. So Robin Hobb is full of just emotionally impactful moments that I absolutely loved, and that's why I annotated hers. I didn't actually even write in the book for the most part because sometimes it's just whole paragraphs and just pages of beautiful, beautiful moments that make me want to just like seize up. So when it comes to fantasy, that's kind of the deal. Same thing with Black Sun. Here it was literally like a whole page and a half of just beautiful writing in this moment, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to remember that because that makes me feel things. And like here there was a line that was really, really beautiful, but for the most part I'm like, I don't really need to remember beautiful lines. I don't care that much. And similarly with Scythe is an interesting one because there's a lot of really interesting explorations of ideas and concepts in here. So I did take some notes down and write down some things. I have actual like little notes just on the book and on the ideas presented, because I feel like this is a really, really interesting book in terms of, yeah, concepts and stuff to explore. So even though it's kind of like sci-fi, fantasy, dystopian sort of thing, I did write notes in it, but it wasn't really to remember anything. It was just to kind of interact with the concepts presented. When it comes to classics, for the most part, I tab to just remember key parts and really interesting things. So Picture of Dorian Gray has a lot of tabs because this book is, first of all, just beautiful. But second, there's a lot of really, really interesting ideas. Again, I have notes in this one. Classics are really good for kind of interacting with, I find, because a lot of the time they are dated, but sometimes things can still apply to today. So I did write a few notes in here and I kind of tabbed them to remember like my favorite lines, favorite moments, things that were important to the story and to the plot and how it's progressing and like things that come back later. Same thing with, I have the kind of Monte Cristo here. We're not gonna laugh at me still not having finished. I don't want to fucking hear it. But in here I did, you know, I had like little notes and I underlined some things that I thought were really, really important to the character's progression in here, and I thought it was just kind of really interesting, and I wanted to kind of remember that when I go through the book and I can come back to it and see how far the character has come, because this is an epic tale of revenge, and so the character progression is incredibly important in this kind of book, so I thought it was just interesting for that. Classics are a little bit weirder in terms of that kind of annotation because everyone has something so different in it. Every single classic has something that's a little bit more unique about it, that it focuses more on. Obviously, Picture of Dorian Gray is the beautiful writing and the prose and these ideas, these kind of almost philosophical debates, whereas County Monte Cristo is very focused on characters, so I really want to note those moments down. So that one's a bit more ambiguous. Nonfiction is a lot more straightforward, let me tell you that. So I got a few out because I annotate my nonfiction considerably more than I annotate anything else. And that is because for me to really process what I'm reading, I really do enjoy reading the same sentence like 2-3 times and then underlining it and really letting it sink in. So for really, really important books that have these like current implications, such as Are Prisons Obsolete and The New Jim Crow, I really felt like it was important to tab these things and be able to come back to them and underline them because they're things I could use in real life. Whereas something that is a bit more historical, I just tab because I found it interesting, I found it relatable. I underlined like larger points or interesting ways of looking at history that I hadn't considered, but it's not as obviously relevant today, but just as someone that really enjoys history, I think it's really cool to have this person's perspective on like this time in history, so I just kind of underlined and tabbed those to remember them for later. And that's kind of the main thing. Like a lot of what I do is to remember it for later, to be able to pull it up in a discussion, to be able to come back to it. The other one is like this, okay, so it is nonfiction, but it's like philosophy. So this one I really have to annotate, literally because I don't know what else to do with it. There is so much to work with in this book that I have to write my words down on the page and actually like connect with the theories on here because there's so much going on in this godforsaken book. It's amazing, but it's so dense and like you need to stop, think, consider what you read, relate it to what you know, to modern time, to other theories. So I literally had no choice but to write a shit ton in the book, to annotate it, to marinate in it, I guess. There's no better way to put it. So like this one's just full of annotations and there's no other way to interact with this book. So I have a feeling most philosophical books I have are gonna look like that at some point, honestly, because like there's no other way to interact with it. It's from what I'm getting, philosophy is not a passive reading experience and it's an active one. And so the only way I know to be active when reading is to annotate the shit out of it. Next question is, do you annotate using a ruler? I never use like a ruler. I just always use this extra large pack of tabs because it has like a straight line and it fits across most books except for like massive fantasy ones, but for the most part it fits across most books in the margins, and so it's pretty easy to just underline in one fell swoop, and it's always in my annotating kit, so it's pretty straightforward. And the final question is, do you annotate every book that you read? Absolutely not. If I know I'm gonna love it, like I said, if it's like a second or third book in a series, I know I love it, I'm going to annotate it. Again, I generally go in a lot with pencil when I start annotating something if I'm not sure I'm gonna love it, or if from the beginning there's a few things that like I'm unsure about. For example, I did end up giving Black Sun a 5-star. However, when I started this, the pacing was a bit weird and I just wasn't sure if I was going to absolutely love it. So I annotated in pencil and it was all these beautiful lines, but I was, you know, I wasn't familiar with the characters. I didn't know how I was gonna feel about them. So I wasn't sure I wanted to fully commit to like pen. But after like, honestly, after 30%, I was absolutely sold. I was completely head over heels with it. So I could have very well annotated it fully, but you know, I just wasn't sure. Nonfiction, I tend to annotate right off the bat because unless it's absolutely terrible, I don't really envision myself like getting rid of these. I think that all of them have some kind of value to my life. So even though, for example, on Killing, there was a lot of it that really kind of drove me nuts, I didn't love it, I did annotate it and get a lot of things out of it, and I know I'm probably gonna keep it for reference because it relates to a lot of things that I do enjoy learning about. So I don't really mind annotating something like nonfiction. But when it comes, yeah, when it really comes to like things like fantasy, maybe horror, definitely thrillers, I don't even buy thrillers anymore, I'm a little bit more weary about annotating them if I'm not sure I love them yet, if that makes sense. And that was it for this tag. If you have not done this yet and you annotate your books, I tag you. Absolutely, let me know if you've done it. I love watching these. I love seeing everyone's different systems. I wish I was organized for like a proper system, but really it's just pure chaos. Let me know if you've done this. If not, do it. It's so much fun to kind of go through and think about your annotating habits. My social media is linked down below. You guys can always come talk to me there. And other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!